Hi, I'm Mal, and welcome to another episode of MiniModelMakes. In today's episode, I'm going to open up this Nolzurs Marvellous Miniatures Owlbear that I recently received from Dark Sphere, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a painting tutorial on him as well at the same time for everyone. So I will go and get the overhead camera set up, and we'll crack on. Okay. So here we have the Owlbear, Nolzurs Marvellous Miniatures. Absolutely gorgeous model. I had a real difficulty trying to get hold of one of these owlbears. Everywhere seemed to be sold out, or on eBay people were selling them for 3 or 4 times the price of what I managed to actually pick it up for from Dark Sphere Games. So thank you, Dark Sphere. That you can find them at darksphere.co.uk, and it was about the £5 mark. It's an impressive chunk of plastic, really nicely detailed on the base. Superb. There we go. Really nice model, very impressed with it. So without much further ado, let's crack on with painting it. So I've thought long and hard about this. You do get, I'll quickly show you the artwork on the back of the box for the Owlbear. Don't quite want it that grey. I'm going to try and do sort of a brown through to a grey paint scheme on it. With many things, natural creatures, things like that, go online, look at pictures. So what I did before this was I was looking at owls mainly to look at the coloration of the feathers and things, and some bears as well, but more the owls. Any kind of project, always do a bit of research online, have a look at what is out there. And what I am going to start off with is Citadel paints. I use Citadel paints because I live in the UK, they're the easiest ones to get hold of. And I'm going to use Dryad bark. Let's see if I can get a palette in there. So always use a palette when it comes to painting models. And I get some of the Dryad bark on there. Use a sort of largish paintbrush for this. Water into that. As always, use a palette, you put some water into it. It enables you to control the paint a lot more easily than just painting straight from the pot. And I am going to paint all over this owlbear's body. I will leave the face, and I am going to also leave the base of the model because I'm going to paint that a slightly different colour. I'm going to go all round the body. And maybe a couple of coats if needed. Okay, the body has been covered with our Dryad bark, and I am now going to do the face with some Steel Legion drab. As I said, I use Citadel Miniatures paints because they're the most readily available to me here in the UK. A lot of shops buy them, but you know, you can experiment with your own colours, different colours depending on where you live. Vallejo paints are very, very good as well. I do have the odd one of those that I like to use, and also Army Painter do some excellent paints too. What I'm now going to pick out is I'm going to paint the entirety of the face on the model now with that base layer of Steel Legion drab. Just gonna top of the head there. Can get this over the beak and the mouth as well because I'm going to paint over them with different colours anyway. So you don't have to be too neat here, which is good. Good thing about these models is they are already undercoated in Vallejo primer, so you don't have to worry about that. What I'm going to do is just put another thin layer over the top of this one in a moment, because I've watered down that just a tiny bit too much. Mix that in on the palette. Just go over the top of the face there. Okay, so I'll tidy that up and I'll move on to the next stage. So I've done the face, done the body. I'm now going to use some Morn Fang Brown Citadel paint again, and I'm going to pick out the base of the model. So quickly mix some of that Morn Fang Brown up. Picking a different brown here just to stand or make the owlbear stand out from the actual terrain it's on. Just going to be very careful as I paint round here. So I'm going to paint all of this base as well at the same time. So I'll finish that off now, and we'll move on to the next stage shortly. For the next stage, I'm going to use some Citadel Agrax Earthshade, and I'm going to liberally apply the Earthshade all over the model. I'm just putting it on my palette first to help with control. Not that you need too much control at this stage, because it is going all over the model. And I'm just going to start applying that. It goes over the face as well. For people who are new to painting, getting all your base colours down is the most obvious start, and then after that it's use of shade. Shade can bring out lots of definition in the model and make it look really good. So if you're painting and you're not using shade, because you know you're still new to this, you don't know too much what you're doing, you're going to see a big improvement when you start applying shade to your models, and correct shade. Black shade in some cases, brown in others, or whatever colours you're working with. You can be using purples, flesh shades, greens, blues. And as I say, as it dries, it goes into all the nooks and crannies in the model and just gives you that extra definition then that you don't have when you apply your base colours. So I am going to now finish putting shade all over the model, including the base, and then I'll go on to the next step after that. Okay. So we're going to lighten the owlbear up now that wash has dried on it. As you can see, it just has started to give a bit of definition to the model that we can now work with, which is really good. I'm going to use some Gawthor Brown, and we are going to start dry brushing. So here we have some tissue paper. I'm going to wipe most of the paint off the brush, and then with my large flat dry brush I'm just going to run it very quickly and lightly over the model to leave the recesses alone, but start to lighten up these feathers and fur that we have. It's just a case of keep. So it's just a case of quickly running the dry brush over the model lightly and picking out all that detail and taking our time to do it. Don't rush it, don't put too much paint on the brush at the start, otherwise you're going to ruin the effect and we're starting to get a nice effect there. So I'll finish that off and we'll move on to our next stage. So as you can see, I've picked out the furry feathers there with our Gawthor brown. What I'm now going to do is move on to the facial area, and I'm using Karak stone this time. Exactly the same as before, getting some paint on the brush, wiping, oh, I've got lots there, didn't really need that much. Wiping it all off. All I'm doing for this is I'm using a really old tatty beaten up paintbrush for this one. Not the big one, because it's only the face I'm worrying about for this. And then exactly the same. Just going to run it very gently, very lightly over the face, so we can start to build up, build back up some texture to it. Okay, so I'll just carry on, tidy that up a little bit and move on to the next stage. So as you can see here now, that facial area is starting to get more definition, more texture to it. That's broadened it out really nicely. I'm going to move back to the body now. Now what I want to do is sort of go away from the browns and give it a kind of a browny grey appearance, or a greyer appearance. So I'm going to use Storm Vermin Fur now. Same again, wipe most of it off onto our tissue paper. I'm using my large dry brush again, and very gently and quickly we're going to build our texture up on that. Give it a slightly different colour now, like we're trying to mix between feathers and fur really. And I'll finish this off and we'll move on to our next stage after that. Here we have all that texture now built up on the fur. It's starting to look really nice. What I'm going to do now is a highlight all over the model, and it's going to be another dry brush, and I'm going to use a little bit of Pallid Witch Flesh for this sort of final highlight. Really going to wipe pretty much everything off the brush, so there is the faintest of suggestion of paint on it. Taking great care now with that, and just going to run that over the model, over the face. Not worry too much about the areas under the wing so much, and the inner part of the leg. I'm just using it to sort of catch the outer areas more, and that goes on the face a tiny touch as well, and just helps to tie the model all back in. I'm just going to roughly go over that, make sure all that's done, and I'll move on. So that's all the furry feathers picked out now. Got some really nice definition to him, and it looks very natural, which is good. I'm now going to pick out his beak. I'm going to use Evelyn Sunset. Can start working on all the tiny areas of the model now. I'll give my paints a shake. So say your Owlbear, you don't have to paint these colours. You can paint whatever colours you want. Look at the artwork in the Dungeons & Dragons book. Google search Owlbears, Google search owls, Google search bears. See what colours take your fancy. Owls have different eyes, they don't all have sort of the same. Some have colour to them, some are straight up black. The beaks are all different colours. I'm just painting this yellow for a night. I just want a bit of definition now, a bright point on the model. I will darken it down with some shade shortly. So I'm going to finish picking out his beak and then I'll move on to the next step, which is going to be the eyes. So I've picked out the beak on the model. I'm now going to pick out the eyes and the claws with Baden Black. I was looking at owl eyes and was struck how different they are, the different variants. But the ones I found sort of the scariest, the most spooky, were sort of the barn owl eyes, the ones that are all solid black in colour. So that's what I'm going to use on my bear, or owlbear. So yeah, I'm going to do the black all over the claws. It's not going to be, you know, bone colour or anything like that. It's going to be plain old black claws. And also the eye I'm going to fill in with black. Now this is a very fine thing for me to do without my regular lighting setup, which shows up as light waves on the camera. It's quite difficult. Pick up this eye there. What I'm going to do now is just tidy that up under a proper light and I'll move on to the next stage. Also I'm going to put black into the mouth as well. The eyes and claws have been picked out now. You can see on there, just trying to bring it more to try and get them in focus. Very difficult with such small detail, but you can make it out there. What I'm going to do now very quickly is get some Nuln Oil gloss and I am going to dab that onto the eye just to give it a bit of sparkle. And there, it's starting to shine it up, as you can see there. And concentrate on that and then move on to the next stage. Next step now is to bring down the brightness of that beak. So once more it's just Agrax Earthshade and we're just going to apply that over the beak. Really simple. And next step now, I'm going to do some highlights on the claws and also the paws on the paw pad on the raised up paw. I'm using Eshin Grey for that. As before, apply some paint to our palette, a little bit of water to help control it. I'm trying to get under the paw. And I'm just applying that to the pads. And then on the actual claws themselves, just run it gently over the top to add a natural highlight to those black areas. The final stages, I just ran some Nuln Oil wash, not the gloss, the plain Nuln Oil over the areas of the paw and claws to bring them back up a little bit. A tiny touch in the beak, the mouth area. And then what I did was I used some of the Evelyn Sunset. I mixed it 50-50 with some Screaming Skull and I've just highlighted the beak of the owlbear, just making like a powdery yellow colour just to run around the edge of the beak to make it a bit more natural looking. Not quite as bright a yellow. And that pretty much is our owlbear complete. I just need to dry brush the base now. bases, you can do whatever colours you want. I'm just going to dry brush a slightly lighter colour on, and then I'll be using our Pallid Witch Flesh as well as a final dry brush just over that. So that's the owlbear done. What I'll do now is I'll move over onto my other camera and we'll wrap up. So there we have our completed owlbear. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really did enjoy painting that little creature, and can't wait to get to use him in one of my Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that I'm doing with my family at the moment. I think it'll be amazing to put him on the table. It's such a gorgeous model. So there's nothing really more to say then. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share. It'd be awesome if you could do that. Make my channel a bit better, get some more exposure out there, which would be good. I'm going to be doing some more Dungeons and Dragons mixed in with some of my Warhammer models, I hope, in the next few weeks. And you can join my MiniModelMakes page on Facebook, and what I will do for you after this, I will put my little turntable out and I'll get a proper close-up video of the owlbear for you to have a look at as well. Okay, so it's still COVID-19 at the moment is still making the rounds, so please, if you're out there, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you soon. Alright, bye for now.